pictures on your screen from earlier today. This is London, where a fierce inferno has left, quote, several people dead, according to the Guardian newspaper, updating us on this developing story. This particular incident began at around 1 a.m. London time. The tower you're seeing is called Grenfell. It's in North Kensington, close to Notting Hill, which is pretty much a very posh and, upwardly mobile sort of area of London. This has been described as a major incident by the London Mayor Sadiq Khan. The inferno has been raging for several hours. Guardian newspaper reporters at the scene have been reported saying that they've seen people trapped in the building, one man in particular waving for help as firefighters in London battled what they are calling an unprecedented incident. We're still waiting on confirmation on the death toll, but we have heard authoritatively, at least from the London Fire Department, that fatalities can be confirmed. We're staying on top of this story for you as we bring you news as it breaks in Kenya and, of course, around the world. This morning, zeroing in on London, that is facing this particular disaster. And here, of course, in Kenya, we're still focusing on politics. And this hour, joining me in studio to discuss the campaign agenda and civil servants and politics, we're joined by Philip Chebunet, who's a lecturer at the University of Eldoret. He'll be speaking to us live from Eldoret very shortly. Anthony Kibagendi is here in studio with us. He is a political analyst alongside Javas Bigambo, who is a governance expert and staying with us, and of course Vincent Kimosop, who is equally a governance analyst. And good morning to you all. And let's kick off our discussion this morning with the campaign agenda. So we've seen, the two significant sides, if you like, in this election contest hit the road campaigning. And Vincent, let me start with you. Do you believe that either of these sides has clearly outlined what their campaign agenda is?
Morning, and thanks for having me. I think you can be able to see clearly what the focus will be. Of course, we call it here. The first is the traditional basis, the ethnic mobilization, and then you massage that with what is it that you'll be presenting, and you can already see the blueprints that the different sides of the divide. I think today, Anna, will be fair that we have 8 presidential candidates. We always accuse that we're only focusing on Uhuru and Raila. There is also Dida and the rest. So you can see they have presented the agenda, but why the two are on the limelight is because of the basis that they control. And when I look at NASA, for example, and I look at Jubilee, 3 primary, secondary school education is already on 4, national unity, devolution. You also see the element of very little prominence of foreign policy. I don't know why on either sides of the divide. Maybe it's because of the milestones that the current administration has made on foreign policy. You also see the whole element of inclusivity, national unity, and which looks like it is shaping up to be the organizing question for this election, and that narrative is being taken by the NASA. And then the other thing that I also see is the whole issue of food security. I think it's because of the unga that we are complaining. I don't know, and the last time we visited a supermarket, I hear people are complaining that
2 days ago.
Were you successful to get a pack of unga?
I must confess, I did not.
Which market was this?
I will not give it on national television.
Okay, fine, but you understand why the whole issue of food security is important. Then finally the whole element of population segmentation. I think the question around the youth, if you look at before speakers are introduced, people are dancing, you see rap, all that is meant to appeal to the youth. It worked for Museveni when he introduced a rap. when he was doing the last election, specifically to excite the youth to vote. So more or less the issues are taking shape, but again, still the primary reason for mobilization is ethnicity, and that people calling it stronghold or bases, but the same thing is what
it's really ethnicity we're talking about. Yeah. All right, Anthony, if it is your opinion that the issues are shaping up in this campaign, which do you believe are garnering some sort of national momentum or focus?
Thank you for inviting me. First, I need to give it a historical perspective. You realize when we set out in 1963, when we got independent, there were specific things that we were trying to achieve as a nation. One is issues to do with literacy levels. 2, fight disease. 3, fight poverty, and various other things. And those are the fundamentals that we need to be working with, whereby we look at what have we achieved in terms of health, universal health to the population. What have we achieved in terms of fighting poverty? What have we achieved in terms of empowerment, jobs, or even entrepreneurship? What has the government done? And when I look at what we are doing right now, in terms of agenda, none of the sides seems to have a specific agenda, because if you look at Jubilee, you cannot promise anything if you haven't achieved what you actually set out to do in 2013. The most important things they were going to work on were in their manifesto. You look at the stadiums, you look at job creation, you look at issues to do with maternity health care and all that. It hasn't come out clearly on what actually they have achieved. They've picked on things that were strategic plans for specific institutions like Kenya Power, and that is what they are running with, the issue of the connectivity of the electricity, which was not a serious agenda in their manifesto in 2013.
I think let's Anthony,
yes.
Let me just pause you.
Yes.
For the sake of clarity.
Yes.
Jubilee has been, and of course it is arguable the degree of success.
Yes.
That is certainly open for debate. But if you're talking about what exactly their campaign agenda is, yes. They have talked about the jobs that they have created. They have talked about SGR. They've talked about laptops. They have talked about maternal care. So I think it is one thing to say that
is it there?
The successes there may be debatable.
Yeah, you know,
but to say it's not there entirely, sir, is that very
and that
honest?
is what I'm talking about. You know, you should be able to tell us we've gotten to this point and we would want to get to the next level.
Right.
But when you let go of what you have not finished and tell us about fresh things, that is inappropriate when you're selling your agenda to the population. And that is what we are talking about. If you look at the maternal health care, the county governments are straining because the national government is not sending money for maternity. You see, that is what we are talking about. When you come to the issue of something like the electricity, which is a wonderful achievement, but again, you go back and look at their manifesto, it was not part of what was supposed to be done by this government. It has been achieved, yes, we appreciate, but that is a strategic plan from a completely different
And I hear you, Anthony, and you certainly have your right to your opinion, but yes. What we are actually discussing right now is the campaign agenda and whether either side of the coalition has been clear on what their agenda is, regardless of whether you believe they fulfilled the previous one or not.
Yes.
And so in that respect, I would like your opinion in terms of what the issues from both sides are that you believe are garnering some sort of national momentum that Kenyans are picking up on and are interested in.
Great. I'll quickly switch because I wanted to give it a bit of a narrative. But now on to what they're talking about right now. You realize there is a problem in this country on issues to do with inclusivity,
right.
Whereby the rest of the country feels left out by what the Jubilee government has done in terms of appointments, job distributions, in terms of resource distribution, and that is an agenda that the NASA coalition seems to be sending out, that we want to bring everybody on board.
Right.
Unlike our opponents who have made the national cake an exclusive members club. On the other side, you realize Jubilee is trying to demonstrate that we are bringing on board young people. We are, particularly from the nominations that they had, they demonstrate that we accept young people, and young people are the future of this nation, and they are the ones we have tried to ensure they actually get a fair playing ground for them to be able to represent their people. The other agenda that I can say Jubilee and CORD have tried to demonstrate, one thing that both of them are fighting is the issue of education. If you look at the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, he has spoken about free secondary education, which he says is an ongoing process, while from the NASA side, they are saying from September. Actually, once they are sworn into government, from September, secondary education will, public secondary education will be free across the country. That demonstrates that there are certain things that are uniform. There are certain things that are fundamental that since we started, since we were independent in 1963, there are certain things we haven't achieved that are uniform in both sides of the divide. Right, Anthony, and I appreciate that. So let me come to you, Javas. If at all you agree with Anthony that the issues on either side of the political divide that are gaining traction countrywide would be the inclusivity question that NASA in particular has propagated, the youth issue where Jubilee is showing signs of some form of inclusivity, if you like, and the education issue, which both sides of the campaigns are sort of fighting over as to whose idea was it, etc. Do you believe these three issues are national issues that can be significant enough to determine the election and how voters will go on August 8th?
Not just yet. When you look at the entire galaxy of political presidential candidates in the Milky Way of our political space, I would bring myself to a speedy conclusion that both sides seem to be struggling with shaping the pillars of their campaigns. And whether you want to pick, say, an important or significant pillar such as economic pillar, etc., you realize that there are very far too many gaps that these two sides seem not to have solidified in terms of making a discussion or a narrative or a campaign agenda around it that would persuade the populace in terms of earning their vote. Let me pick Jubilee, for example. Well, Jubilee would speak to an issue like creating jobs, etc., to run the economy, etc. You realize that it is shy and playing blind to significant industrial issues, say, facing the Western region, like the issue of Mumia Sugar Company, like the sugar factories, etc., and whatnot, the pan paper and whatnot. Then, when you look at CORD, on the other hand, they seem to be, clinging on the issue of the Unga thing only, etc. Now, for example, when you come to Nairobi and many parts of this country, you realize that the two critical sides, and I'm speaking as mainly on the Jubilee economic agenda, for example, and the NASA economic agenda,
right,
because the other fringe candidates seem not to be aware of what it critically takes to run a presidential campaign on pillars. When you look at, for example, the Jua Kali sector, it has been left out in this discussion by two sides. They are not even making or gaining, having that idea gain traction and see how they can win votes on those sides. Come to Nairobi. For example, you realize that there is an economic sector that has been forgotten for far too long. Say the light industries in the eastlands of Nairobi.
Right.
For a very long time, I've never had any serious presidential candidate or even government speak to how they can scale up or pump money and favor the growth of the light industries because it employs lots and lots of people.
Right.
So this, on the economic sector, these two main sides have not firmed up, have not solidified what issues they want, the grains that they want to have to move forward the discussion on the economic side. When it comes to education, for example, you realize that while Jubilee is shy to now put a finger on the successes, especially when it comes to say the laptop issue, etc.
Right.
But you realize that lots of the education function has remained with the national government. Only parts of it, small parts of it, having been devolved, going to the county governments. And there are lots of challenges, whether they are to do with the curriculum, they are to do with infrastructural issues, they are to do with the challenges that are facing the instructors in schools, that need serious attention to see how we can increase transition rates in education, minimize or reduce illiteracy to a very great extent, because as Kibadindi spoke to it, that's one of the critical issues that the founding president of this country said that we need to rid ourselves of as a nation. Come to agriculture, for example. It's not just a question of the unga thing that is missing on the shelves in supermarkets. How come that in the 21st century we're still grappling with the problem of food security? Well, there was an initial proposal of the Galana irrigation program that seems not to have taken off ground successfully. But no side, for example, has spoken to how they can incentivize the youth, say through the youth fund and other frameworks, to see how the youth can move into serious agriculture or agribusiness, and also how they can boost smallholder farmers in this country, so that food sufficiency across the counties can be given attention, to the extent that the agricultural sector, which is the mainstay of our economy, can be boosted. So I think these two sides, one, either they're lacking serious strategists that can create links between policy and campaign,
right? And
that gap is what is going to, I think, cost the seriousness of the campaign discussion.
Yeah, and Philip Chebinet, let me just say, he's on the line, and we're going to be joining him shortly. He's live for us in Eldoret and will be giving us analysis in just a bit. But I hear what you're saying, Javas, and one may wonder whether that is because when it comes to the actual writ, if you like, of some of these pledges, that politicians may just believe that it doesn't matter. Nobody's looking at the fine print of your manifesto, that elections in Kenya largely are simply emotive, and that is what they want to pander to in terms of driving the numbers. So let me ask you this. Do you then believe that bread and butter issues, as NASA is playing them out, are really the issues that resonate with the public and get out the vote, as in comparison to the detail of policy specifics, which are important, that you're talking about, but hardly unlikely to see most voters come out and cast their ballot?
You see, the genius of our politicians is that they have realized how our my fellow citizens or the voters do not like sinking their teeth deep into issues, right, or getting into the detail of stuff. And that's why, if you are to ask any second Kenyan on the streets, whether it's in Nairobi or in the countryside, none of them can even aptly recall the details of a manifesto of even the 2013 presidential candidate.
So why invest in strategists if no one remembers?
And the thing is this: we need to see how to pull our socks up. For example, when it comes to the presidential discussions or debates, if you remember the 2013, there is the disappointing fact that presidential discussions and debates are not taken seriously, that you can hold any of them to account. For example, what even the president said during that debate, and how even presidential discussions or debates can inform policy at the national level. Much more than that, I think realizing that the common voter or the average voter is persuaded by other fringe things, one of them being, yes, ethnicity, to the inclination to the regionalism or ethnic nationalism that has been given much more premium by the voter than the sound issues that actually should be the propeller factors of an economy or a country's progress. And when the common voter, who actually determines who gets to win or to run government, is training his sights or her sights on fringe issues, then the politician is instructed as well to cast their eyes on those fringe issues. So I think here we need to see how we can have the common voter or the average citizen enhance their demands on the leaders, and also the leaders showing leadership or demonstrating leadership, so that when you look at the discussion that takes place even during campaigns or during the campaign rallies,
right, you
realize that most of the time our politicians end up only being satirical, being master theatre, engaging in master theatrics,
right,
that no voter can pick out anything from a promissory engagement at these rallies.
But might a change be coming? And I want to speak to Philip Chebunet now, who's joining us live from Eldoret. He is a lecturer at the University of Eldoret, and he is also a political analyst. And Philip, you've been listening to our discussion, and Javas has just talked about, really when it comes to the campaign agenda, it behoves the electorate to also raise their standard and to demand that they want to hear, if you like, these critical issues. But could there be a change that is happening, a shift from bread and butter and emotive issues to something different, and to the extent that when it comes to the narrative of the six-piece voting, that both sides of the, both significant sides, if you like, of the political divide are advocating for, we are seeing, particularly in the Rift region and based on party primaries, that voters are saying, you know what, we're going to pick our own people. We're not necessarily going to go for the candidates who seem to have favoritism from the party leadership. Is that your own assessment, that at least when it comes to picking a leader, Kenyans are at the point where they're saying we don't want our leaders to pick our leaders for us, we're going to determine who we'll vote for? Philip, can you hear us? All right, let's try and resolve that issue. It seems he can't hear us. But let me pose the same question to you, Vincent, because you've heard me. Is there a shift from purely bread and butter issues, which, by the way, are important issues, of course, but to a different kind of probe of the kind of leaders that we want, that is different at the national level and is something else, at the grassroots level, if you like?
I'll say partly yes and partly no. Let me begin with the yes part. And you've been interviewing and you've listened to these different parts of the divide, and you can see very clearly that even from the opinion poll, the one that was carried by the three firms, I keep referring to it because the pointers were almost closed. That 60% of the country was saying, hey, things need to improve. So when you have such a response from the members of the public, then it was very easy, even for example, for an alternative government to present maybe a super deal, a grand plan. Let me take you to 2002, Anne. I remember the 5-point plan of the Kibaki's agenda. One, free primary school education, good governance, restoring the dignity and the image of, it was very clear, a projection of a greater and a better Kenya, a well-managed country. So in this situation, you do not see that, because I think either we have been divided too much and there is no point of doing the same. But I can point out that it matters. For example, and if I was listening to Javas, it almost came out, if there was an interview on people who is meant to be identified as a campaign strategist, then he will carry the cup. If we were to have, if we were to zero down and say what is Jubilee presenting to Kenyans and what is NASA presenting to Kenyans, that is very clearly taking this country forward, then I can point out clearly that they should be able to do it. But they should also not now turning to the no part, the bread and butter issues. I can tell you, Anne, if people will continue complaining that, oh, the price of unga has come down to 90, but your unga to party, I'm even using Swahili just so that I can really communicate the clearly what the people are saying on the ground. Then number two, the whole issue about when we have what is a better Kenya that as Jubilee you are going to present for us, so that you tell your story. There's something called a well-told story. Today, 2007, Kibaki showed us very clearly that development and economics does not win an election. You have to touch the hearts and the hearts of the voters, so that they are excited to be able to vote for you. Remember, the ICC issue in 2013 was very clear that if we do not vote for our people, they will be taken. We do not want to do that. So such emotive issues will also help you if you address bread and butter issues.
All right. Let me try and return one more time to Philip Chabunet, who's in Eldoret Forest, a political analyst and a law lecturer at the University of Eldoret. Philip, we're talking about the calls by politicians for six-piece voting. We saw that resisted to some degree in party nominations. What is the scenario in Eldoret? How is it playing out? And is it your own assessment the public mood is turning pro-individuals rather than pro-parties?
Thank you, Anne. I think for the last 1 week, actually, Uasin Gishu has hosted the president and the deputy president, and it has been a mixed bag of goodies. The IDPs have been compensated. I think Jubilee generally they have tailored their messaging depending on the region in which they have gone. Remember, when they came to Uasin Gishu, of course, Puseki has come out clearly as a competitor to the incumbent. And the president and the deputy president have been forced to come out clearly that Jackson Mandago is their candidate. But remember, as they have been traversing other counties, Jubilee has changed tune, and in some areas like you would see in West Pokot, the president had to come out clearly that Lonyangapuo and Pokisho ni watu wetu, they are ours. And the kind of tough wars continued in Elgeyo Marakwet, where there is also an independent candidate by the name of Changwon, who is rivaling Tolkos, the current governor. So Jubilee have been forced to deal with specifically the election of the president. In fact, in some instances, the president has even called upon William Ruto to come and talk to his own people, to come and persuade them at least to look for the presidential vote specifically. So the issue of six-piece suit has been selective. In fact, in some areas like Nandi, they had to come out clearly that we want Jubilee nominees. But in some areas, they have been forced to deal with only track record and the election of the president.
And thank you for that. Anthony, I'll pose the same question to you. Do you believe six-piece voting could be something highly unlikely in this election?
You realize, like where I come from in Kisii County, people are extremely excited about NASA and the Raila presidency. But when you go further down, people tend to ask, we have never seen a six-piece suit. We know there is a three-piece suit, you know, because of when you look at the challenges the parties faced, especially at the nomination levels, where I was a victim actually, this has really affected certain areas. If you look at the whole of Nyanza, including Kisii and Luo Nyanza, where in like Homa Bay County, we have an independent candidate called Magwanga, who is extremely strong, who is running against the incumbent, who is Cyprian Awiti. In Kisii County, we have a challenger for the sitting governor, who is James Ongwae, and people seem to be agreeing that they would vote for Chris Obure, irrespective of which party he is in, purely because they feel if we are fighting corruption at the top, then we have to fight corruption also down here, whereby there are issues of corruption in Kisii County government, which is predominantly ODM. But they're feeling, yes, we want Raila as president. But down here, we cannot be forced to vote for someone who has been incompetent. The same is resonating in other areas. And as our able professor has just said there are areas where you go and you can clearly state that, hey, here we want our party nominees, either Jubilee suit or ODM suit or NASA suit, you know. And again, there are areas where you go, you are a little careful. You have now to be careful whereby you say, yes, we have Javan Bigambo here and we have Kibagendi. They are running for governor and both of them are our people. So you need to see how you'll be able to handle them. You need to ensure that one of them comes through. That way, the presidential candidates are being careful so that they ensure they gather all the votes from certain regions. Another thing I would be able to add here is as they go out to sell their agenda, the issue of the suit has become critical, or the suit or no suit has become critical, and that makes now the campaign strategists, they are the ones who go before these presidential candidates actually go there, and they tell them, hey, on this side, when you get to Eldoret, you have to be careful. The dominant community here are the Nandi, and Buzeki has mopped up all the other communities against the Nandi. So you have to be careful how you handle this, and you know how Eldoret can be in case there is trouble. And then when you go to other zones, you come like to Kisii, like he said, the Jubilee have been trying to tailor their agenda depending on the region they visit. Like they came to Kisii, they compensated IDPs. But again, it has been a double-edged sword, because they're saying, yes, you have come to compensate us, but why last minute?
Right.
And why this amount when others got a certain amount?
But in respect to the six-piece voting, which is what we're talking about, it could be a mixed bag. I'm sorry, sir, I have to cut you short because we're absolutely out of time, but nonetheless, I thank my guests for this first half hour of the program. We are taking a short break. When we return, we're talking about civil servants and politics. We saw a statement issued by the Law Society of Kenya. They have written a letter to the Public Service Commission asking for investigations, in particular with regards to two public servants whom they claim have been attending political party meetings and even acted as members of the technical committees, saying that it is in flagrant disregard of the Leadership and Integrity Act and the Public Officer Ethics Act. We're talking after the break. Stay with us on Citizen Extra.